Hey guys, Steve here with Geek Boulevard for another film review. I just got back from seeing Abigail, the latest horror film from the directors of Ready or Not, Scream 5 and 6, also known as Radio Silence. Also, just giving you a disclaimer that I will be going into story spoilers later in the video, but I have included timestamps down below so you can skip that portion if you don't want to know too much about the plot. Abigail is rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 49 minutes. A group of would-be criminals kidnap the 12-year-old daughter of a powerful underworld figure. Holding her for ransom in an isolated mansion, their plan starts to unravel when they discover their young captive is actually a bloodthirsty vampire. I mean, could you just imagine how cool that twist would have been if the trailers hadn't shown her as a vampire, but then you get some generic thriller about criminals kidnapping some kids. So, I mean, I get why they did that. You need that hook, but man, that would have been such a cool reveal. But it does help that the film is great too. I had a blast with this one. The great balance of characters is definitely not to be understated here. Some get a little more screen time than others, those being Dan Stevens and Melissa Barrera, but they bounce off of each other pretty well, and they all feel like distinct personalities. Also, the film is a lot funnier than I thought it would be. I found myself laughing quite a bit throughout the runtime. The film isn't so much scary as it is more just funny and gory, so the scare factor, at least to me, was a little lacking in that department. Most of that humor comes from Dan Stevens' character and Kevin Durant, who plays Peter in the film. He's like this big Russian muscle-bound dude who's not very bright, and they kind of play on that and have a lot of jokes throughout the movie because of that. But the star of the show, of course, is Alicia Ware as Abigail, who is just absolutely fantastic, as she gets a real sick kick out of messing with these people and just tearing them apart one by one, or as she likes to put it, playing with her food. And you get a pretty decent backstory with her as we get more info as to who her father is and why they're pulling off this job in the first place. And Abigail is just so giddy as she's picking these people off one by one. There's one scene where she's literally doing ballet and she's dancing with a dead body. It's definitely macabre, definitely seems like something a ballerina vampire would do, I would imagine. Okay, from this point you have been warned. I will be getting into spoilers, so by all means skip this to my overall score if you don't want to know what happens in the final act of the movie. Okay, so it turns out that Giancarlo Esposito, who plays Lambert in the film, the team's sort of employer, the boss who started this whole gig, is secretly a vampire himself who works for Abigail and was tasked with bringing these people here to essentially have them for dinner. But he's getting a little sick of it. He wants to kill Abigail and take her father's empire for himself. That was a bit of a predictable twist in my opinion. I mean, usually if the boss who gave you the job doesn't give you the full details, you should definitely assume the worst. I mean, it wasn't a bad twist by any means, but I definitely saw it coming pretty early on. I did like the final fight sequence of Dan Stevens and Alicia fighting it out very viciously, I might add, since Stevens' character voluntarily gets bit by Esposito and decides he wants to have the big empire all to himself instead. So the two of them get into a nice bloody tussle. So the way that the vampires were created in this movie I thought was different. At least I don't recall anything like that being done before. I might be mistaken there, but it seems as if there's two different types of vampires in this movie. There's the ones that when they get bit, they don't necessarily have a sense of identity. They essentially become just puppets for the vampire that infected them to speak through them and feed through them. Then you have characters like Esposito's character, who is a vampire but is completely autonomous. He has his own identity. He's your traditional vampire. So I thought that that was interesting that they played it in that kind of way. I thought that that was different. Overall, I'm going to score Abigail 4 out of 5 stars. A slightly predictable twist and not as scary as I was hoping. The diverse performances and standout Alicia as Abigail, in addition to the funny and gory moments, were more than enough to keep me pleasantly entertained throughout. It's definitely a win and a film you should definitely sink your teeth into, pun intended. But what did you guys think of Abigail? Did you get the chance to check it out yet? Give me your #1 all-time favorite vampire movie and why. Let me know down in the comments below, and don't forget, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. It always helps out the channel, and sub to the channel. Stay notified when my next review is going to drop. I'm going to be reviewing Rebel Moon Part 2 this week, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, guys, and until next time, keep it classy and keep it geeky.
I fucking hate ballet.